Hey, I'm sick. What's up? It's the Culture Detective here, investigating your favorite albums. And today, um, I have scheduled to do the 2014 mini albums review. Who would have thought that I would get sick? But I would still do it because I don't have much time left. Tomorrow I'm gonna have to come out with, I think, worst albums and worst songs of 2016. So let's talk about albums. So again, I'm gonna talk about 4 good albums and also 2 bad albums. Albums that I think are good and bad, just my opinion. So let's start off with D'Angelo with Black Messiah, or formerly known as D'Angelo and the Vanguard. So D'Angelo is a singer from Virginia, USA. He is a neo-soul R&B singer who is very special. He dropped albums like Voodoo and Brown Sugar, and they're both really critically acclaimed. And now he come back. He came, and then 14 years later, he came back and with the album Black Messiah. And what's special about this album is that it takes on R&B with a very special approach. It's way more loose instrumentally, but way more freaky vocally, and the songs on this project are soft, dreamy, sensual, and catchy as well. The album opener, Ain't That Easy, is a prime example, in my opinion. It's very freaky, very loose, but also extremely catchy. The next track is 1000 Dreams, and it's a really odd track. It has a really odd groove, some boomy drums, and the scratchy pacing guitar sort of synced up together. And it sounds very fuzzy, very lo-fi, a little psychedelic maybe, but it still sounds very, very nice. The next track, The Charade, is also an amazing track in my opinion. I really love the constant hand clap beats and the melodies. They are very nostalgic, sweet, and it sounds like a sunset. And the chorus is very late 90s alt rock-esque, and it's incredibly beautiful. The next track is Sugah Daddy, and it has some really nice, smooth, funky grooves, a really nice, peppy instrumental with the bluesy pianos, and it's another really amazing track. Same goes for Really Love, where in the beginning we get some somber and sad strings and some really beautiful Spanish guitar playing, and then it slowly transitions into something soft, sweet, and gentle. Then we have tracks like Back to the Future 1 and Back to the Future 2. I kind of prefer 2 over 1, while 1 has this looped guitar motif that's constantly being played in the back, and it has some sweet melodies. 2 is even more smooth, even more beautiful. I love the sweet vocal harmonies, and the strings are very gorgeous. The track Till It's Done is also an amazing song because of how soft and droopy the instrumentals are. The synths are very warm, and the verses and the choruses are just so laid back. Uh, they're so easy in the ears. The track Prayer is the weirdest track on the album. It has some washed out synths and some chopped up guitars with some weird bell samples, and it doesn't sound as sweet and as endearing as other tracks on the album, but I still like it for what it is. And then we have the track The Door, which has this really nice acoustic blues funk fusion, and it's also a very laid back track. And the album ends off with Another Life, which is a long-winded, grand ending to the album. It's like a fusion between gospel and blues, funk, soul, and I really love the glistening, beautiful pianos at the end. And overall, it's a really, really solid album, very, very consistent, and I find myself enjoying the album a lot. I'm feeling an 8 out of 10 for this project. My favorite song here is Ain't That Easy. And my least favorite is Prayer. The next album that I'm going to be talking about is FKA Twigs with LP1. So FKA Twigs is a art pop singer, R&B singer from the UK, and she's very, very artsy. Her music is hard to digest, but once it clicks, it really clicks because the production, they're just so layered, so beautiful, so unique, and really weird at most the time. The album starts off with Preface, a almost 2-minute long intro track, and it's really atmospheric, really moody. We get some heavenly angelic vocals and this weird warpy hip-hop beat in the back with some sour synths as well. And even though it's not a very catchy track, it really sets the tone for the rest of the album. We have the track Lights On, which is soft, sexy, dreamy, and I absolutely love it. I love the booming bass notes, and I also really like how the drums are kind of messy, kind of cacophonous here. And a car alarm is also sampled in the track, so yeah, the production. It's very detailed, very weird, but also very unique and refreshing. The track 2 Weeks is my favorite FKA Twigs song. It's grand, it's angelic, and it has this light trap beat on top of this really grand and powerful and angelic instrumental, and it sounds like Twigs' vocals are gliding on top of the beat very, very smoothly, and it's absolutely beautiful. And then up next is the track Hours, and it's one of the least interesting songs on the album. It's more cluttered, it's more spacey and atmospheric. There are some faint guitars pinching in the back, and there isn't really much in terms of melodies. However, the next track, Pendulum, is fantastic. It's very slow, very sluggish, and it may not click when you're listening to it for the first time, but it's actually really beautiful. Her vocals and the twittery percussions just make the song sound really gorgeous and in the moment. And the next track, Video Girl, is also one of the highlights for the album. It's a really probably the catchiest song off of the record here. I really love the sad descending chords and the constant beat, and the lyrics are really interesting as well. Twigs sort of sing that is that the girl in the video, and she's kind of referring to herself because she's the girl in the video. Man, I am sick. Then we have the track Numbers, which is a really special track. It has some sour melodies in the beginning, but at the end, it's just really, really beautiful, really gorgeous, and again, very sensual and sexy track. The track just ends off with her breathing very loudly, and it's kind of sensual. The next track, Closer, is a little underwhelming though. It's really atmospheric. It has this really nice metallic beat in the back, but it's just so faint and just so quiet, it doesn't really do much to the song overall. The next track, Give Up, is another great track, however. I really like the reversed beat and the compressed ascending keys that just soars to the sky every now and then. And lyrically, it's kind of interesting. Twigs kind of talk about how she almost gave up her dreams, and she talks a lot about herself on the album, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, not at all. And the album ends off with Kicks, with this super disjointed, choppy beginning, but later on we get some really warm melodies and some messy, cacophonous drums, which are actually really beautiful, which match really well to the instrumentals. And overall, I think the album is just a really special, unique, artsy, extremely well-produced pop album. Yeah. An 8 out of 10. My favorite song here is 2 Weeks. Least favorite is Hours. The next album I'm going to be talking about is Run the Jewels 2 by Run the Jewels, which is a duo formed by LP and Killer Mike, two very talented rappers and producers. And I really don't have much to say about Run the Jewels other than that they make some really solid, badass hip-hop music. And this album might even be better than their debut. So we have Jeopardy, which is a really odd opening for the album. We get some lurky bass lines, some really weird, freaky, scary synth lines, and a really heavy beat, as well as some kooky saxophones and this really gritty rapping by Killer Mike. And it's a really weird song, but also a very fantastic song because of its solid performance. And then up next we have Oh My Darling Don't Cry, and it's a really hard-hitting song. It has a really heavy sub bass and some skippy snares, which are fantastic. Some watery keys in the back, bleeping, blooping, and the instrumentals, they get more and more chaotic as time goes by. And again, they deliver some really hard-hitting and blunt and aggressive performances, which are amazing. Blockbuster Night Part 1 is pretty much equally as badass. It has some really blown out guitar sort of bouncing in the back, and again, the performance is very angry and violent. The next track is Close Your Eyes and Count to Fuck, and it's a total banger. Run the jewels fast, run the jewels fast. It's loud, it's unapologetic. We get some punk bass riffs in the back just thrashing out. We get this very hard-hitting beat just constantly cranking, and Killer Mike just going all nuts over the track. We have the track All My Life, which has some weird bubbly keyboards, which is actually kind of interesting, but the rapping is just a little bit monotone in my opinion. The next track is Lie, Cheat, Steal, and another really evil, cunning Run the Jewels song. It has some scary ascending keys that are evil and sinister, and we got some really blunt and angry lyrics like teabagging a piranha tank. Lie, cheat, steal, kill, win, win. Everybody's doing it. It's a really catchy song as well. The next track, Early, has some scratchy and rough keyboards, which are pretty nice, and the hook is actually really beautiful by sort of this small name that is the feature. The next track, All Due Respect, is also one of my favorites on the album. The percussions are extremely organic, messy, and cacophonous, and the bridge are just crazily energetic. And the keys are also really warpy and watery here, which are amazing. The next track, Love Again, has more of an odd, strange, hefty, catchy beat, and it's paired with Gangsta Boo's verse, which is amazing. And the next track, Crown, is maybe the darkest and the saddest song on the entire LP, no pun intended, on the entire album, if you are confused. And yeah, I love this track as well. We get some buzzy synths that are really dark, and the lyrics are actually really sad as well. Killer Mike talks about dealing drugs to a pregnant woman, which hits really hard. And then we have the track Angel Duster, the ending to the album, and it has some rough synths and some sparkly keys, which are amazing. Even though it's not, I guess, one of the more hard-hitting tracks on the album, I still like it quite a bit. I'm giving Run the Jewels 2 an 8 out of 10 as well, a strong 8. And my favorite track here is Close Your Eyes, and my least favorite is I don't know. I honestly don't know. I guess All My Life. Up next, I am gonna talk about Liars with Mess. Liars is a band from Australia, and every album from them are a little different, and Mess is an all-out crazy techno, house, synth, pop mixture that is just really colorful and wild and hectic. The album starts off with Mask Maker, which is a phenomenal track because it's just really hectic, really wild, really busy and crazy. We get some bubbly synth arpeggios that just keeps on going up and up and up, and we get some really weird samples, and it's just an oddly strange opening for the album that's actually really energetic and really exciting. The second track sounds really similar to the first track, except it's a little bit more toned down and a little more cold and icy. It's Vox-tuned D.E.D. I really love the pulsating synths here, even though I think on this track and on a lot of the tracks on the album, the songwriting part of the song isn't really the band's strong suit, but still, I love the track. The next track is I'm No Gold, and it has some drunken keyboards that are just swinging from side to side, and this really heavy beat, and some really challenging melodies, and again, a really hard-hitting, crazy, wild electronic track. The next track is Pro Anti Anti, and at first it gets some chilly, reverby organs, which are interesting, but later on it becomes this really, really heavy and hard-hitting song with some crazy bass and synths, and it really hits hard. The next track is Can't Hear Well, which is a bit of an intermission, and it's pretty slow. The synths are okay, but the vocals are a little muffled, so I'm not a huge fan of the track. But the next track, Mess on a Mission, which sounds really, really, really like a standout single for the album, is really, really good in my opinion. Even though it's not much of a dynamic song, but still, it's a really exciting and energetic and freaky song. Facts are facts and fiction's fiction. I love the punchy snares, the glitchy keys, the hooks, they are fantastic. When it hits the chorus, it just explodes, and the music video is one of the best music videos of the decade, in my opinion. And then up next, we have the track Darkslide, which doesn't really have vocals at all. It's more of a busy, bustly IDM electronic track that actually offers some really interesting textures. We got some buzzy synths, some crispy plastic metallic percussion hits, and some watery sound effects, and the whole thing just comes together really, really cohesively and impressively. The next track, Boyzone, has some dissonant synths and these really elongated moans, which are just really weird and twisted. Dress Walker is, I guess, one of the least interesting songs on the album as well, because it's very low-key, it feels way more uniform, and while I kind of like the chuggy beat, the stale keyboards and the drunken vocals really do not help much. But the last two tracks are pretty special. First, we have a 9-minute long track called Perpetual Village, and it's this minimal atmospheric electronic track that provides a really weird soundscape, and it has this really weird tiki-taki beat, which I love. And then the album ends off with Left Speaker Blown, which is 7 minutes long, and it's an ambient ballad, but it's a really well-produced and very tasteful ambient ballad because of the buzzy synths and the really gorgeous keyboards and the back just faintly diddling. And overall, I think it's a really, really special album. Even though it has its flaws, the vocals are not as wild or as upfront, but still, yeah, love the song. 8 out of 10. My favorite song here is Mess on a Mission, and my least favorite is either Dress Walker or friggin' Can't Hear Well. Okay, 2 albums left, then I can go to bed. First off, we have a bad album, Lana Del Rey, Ultra Violence. And this album is really special because the reason why it's bad isn't really the reasons why I think most of the bad albums are bad. It's actually a very catchy album with some catchy hooks here and there, and it's a really emotional, melodramatic album, which on the surface sounds pretty epic, but really it's just really cliche and cheesy. So the album starts off with Cruel World, which is already almost 7 minutes long, and it's absolutely drab. The drums are really sluggish. In fact, if you have paid close attention, the drums on every single track are basically the same. But yeah, anyway, the chorus is basically this 70s, 60s pop ripoff, and it's just really drab and unoriginal. We have the title track, which has some really nice pianos and some, and the chorus is actually really bright and catchy. But the lyrics, once you look into it, geez, they're so cliche and shallow. It's like the lyrics are something that you would hear on a melodramatic daytime talk show. And then we have the track Shades of Cool, which has some weird James Bond's kind of guitars. And the chorus, even though it sounds kind of catchy, kind of nocturnal and beautiful, but still, everything else about the song is just weird, especially the instrumental swell at the end. It just feels very jarring and unnatural. We have the track Brooklyn Baby, which is basically a boring guitar song, and the lyrics show some of the most obnoxious Brooklyn stereotypes, liking old things, listening to old jazz and all that. Then we have the track West Coast, which has this weird whispery vocal for the verses, and the tempo suddenly switches when it hits the chorus. It becomes super tasteless and bland once it hits the chorus. And almost the same on the next track, Sad Girl, where the instrumentals are really shallow, but what's worse is the chorus. It's just absolutely redundant. I'm a sad girl, sad girl. We have the track Pretty When You Cry, and it's still a very boring track. The guitars are really bitter, and when Lana Del Rey tries to reach her very high register, when she's trying to sing "Cry," it's just really laughable because it's ridiculous. She needs a vocal coach. And then we have the track Money, Power, Glory, which is a really shallow, one-dimensional song about greed, and the chorus is just extremely flaccid, flat, and drab. We have the track Fucked My Way to the Top. Oh wow, she fucked her way to the top. How bad, how bad. But actually, the lyrics in the song are essentially Lana Del Rey dissing someone for ripping her off, which is kind of weird because Lana Del Rey rips off so many other artists as well. And the song also tries to be a little more rock-oriented, but it just really fails because it doesn't really have the grit or the energy right there. We have the track Old Money, which is this lo-fi piano string ballad, and it just doesn't work. It sounds repetitive, it sounds redundant. The Other Woman has some clever lyrics about what it's like to be the other woman in an affair, but other than that, the track is also not that great. In fact, the lyrics are really, really good. They're not even written by Lana Del Rey. Up next, it's Black Beauty, and it's just this really drab, melodramatic song, and we have the track Guns N' Roses, which is also a really just a really boring and drab song. The vocals are pretty much the same here. The drums are pretty much the same here. And the album ends off with Florida Kilos, which suddenly turns mainstream. Suddenly it sounds kind of mainstream. We get this weird baby voice by Lana Del Rey and some really messy guitars, which are definitely not intentional, and it's just a really weird ending. So yeah, overall, I don't enjoy this album, not at all. On the surface, it sounds kind of good, but once you dive deeper, you'll realize that it's just a really vapid, shallow pop album that doesn't lead to anywhere. I'm feeling a 3 to a 2 out of 10. My favorite track is the title track, and my least favorite, I don't know. And then after that, I want to do a review on an album that I don't think many people have reviewed, but it's Iggy Azalea with the new classic, and bruh, I don't like the album, not at all. So, first off, I can't take Iggy Azalea seriously because her performance in these songs on the album are just so forcefully over the top and just so forcefully swag. It's just totally unlike her. If you have seen her interviews, it's totally not the way she talks, and the accent, it's like she's forcing herself to rap with a black accent, and it's just, I can't take her seriously. We have the track Walk the Line, which tries to be this stupid motivational song, and it just ends up super obnoxious. The next track, Don't Need Y'all, might be one of my least favorite songs on the album because it tries to sound low-key and eerie and strange and atmospheric, but also at the same time it tries to sound warm and motivational and sweet. And when Iggy Azalea went grow harder, grow stronger, I just can't bear it. We have the track 100, which has some summery vocals and some choppy guitars that totally do not match Iggy Azalea's performance. No chemistry whatsoever. The track Change Your Life is another song that I can't take seriously. I'ma change your life, I'ma change your life. It tries to be a motivational party banger. You know the rest of the story. We have the track Fancy, which is the biggest single that Iggy Azalea had ever put out. It features Charlie XCX, and Charlie's singing is actually pretty nice on the track. However, the song is just not that great in general. It could have been way more catchy and way more pleasant to the ears if it wasn't this dry and drab. And then we have the track New Bitch, which has this futuristic synth line which is just gross. And these instrumentals, they sound deaf-tone. They sound really dumbed down. We have the track Work, and if you haven't heard the Rihanna song or the 5/5 Harmony song, you probably wouldn't know that this song is also similar to those two because it's basically working all my shit. It's repetitive, it's obnoxious, and I don't want to hear more of it. We have the track Impossible Is Nothing, and it tries to be atmospheric and eerie, but it just ends up super boring because there's no climax or rhyme or reason to any of the instrumentals. We have the track Goddess, which is, I guess, the only song that I find kind of okay, because it has this really odd, unsettling background, but at the same time, on top, we get some weird, exotic, jungly keys, which are pretty special, and it creates something that's kind of sticky and kind of memorable, actually. And even though the performances suck, I still enjoy the instrumentals of the track. I think they're kind of memorable. The next track, Black Widow, is just, the instrumentals are just extremely repetitive and annoying. The non-stop clappy beats and the busy keys, they just won't stop. And again, the song sounds just really stupid. The track Lady Patra tries to sound cute with these sweet synth lines, but again, totally ends up boring and flaccid, sounds really dumb, and the album ends off with Fuck Love, which is, again, another weird commercial turn of sound. It actually has an industrial banger beat, which sounds kind of nice, actually, but then you get the random air horn samples and the performance. Fuck love, give me diamonds. Fuck love, give me diamonds. And it's just, I don't like the album. I am happy if you do enjoy the album, but I don't like the album, and I'm just gonna leave it at that, or else I'm gonna collapse and not wake up for the next 3 years or something. I'm giving this album a 2 out of 10, and my favorite track is Goddess, and my least favorite is Don't Need Y'all. What are your thoughts on these albums from 1 to 10? How much did you rate them? Like if you like them, hate if you hate them, and subscribe if you want more, and thanks for watching. Hopefully I get well soon. Yeah.